Hi everyone, I'm Tim Madigan. I'm here with Dr. Patrick O'Malley, author of the book Getting Grief Right, Finding Your Story of Love and the Sorrow of Loss. This is the second of a series of short videos we're producing that we hope will be helpful to those of you who are grieving, or if you're supporting a person who is grieving. We speak in the book quite a bit about the fact that no person's grief is the same. We describe it as being like a snowflake or a fingerprint. And why is that important?
Many of the grief theories that came out in the last many decades were very universal. They treated everybody the same. And so if you're looking at stages or looking at tasks or looking at various processes, there was no really accommodation for an individual story. And we talk about how each person's grief is going to be different based on several factors.
One of your major epiphanies that we describe in the book happened as you were washing your dog one day. Could you share a little bit about that?
The story around that is that this was an afternoon of just getting some chores done, and my two sons were very young, and I had taken care of some things I needed to do for them. It's time to wash the dog. And so I got the dog ready to go and got the soap out and began to wash. What I noticed almost immediately is that I began to feel a sensation of teariness, of sadness that I couldn't explain. And this is an example of how environment can sometimes just sneak right past all your defenses. Environmental triggers go right to the core of who we are. And what I was able to understand in that moment was I was using an antiseptic soap on my dog, and that smell was the exact same smell that I encountered each time I had to scrub up when our young son was in the neonatal ICU. That teariness came because that scent totally bypassed any defenses I had and went to the core of my pain and my sadness because of the remembering of that smell when we were in the hospital. And so it occurred to me at that point, well, if that is so, then no wonder we continue to feel feelings of loss. Those environmental triggers can happen at any point.
And people, to varying degrees, but if you lived with someone, if you're close to someone, there are going to be triggers, whether it was a hardware store you visited together, or just speak in general about what some of the common triggers might be.
We tend to think of triggers that are predictive, like birthdays and anniversaries and holidays, and certainly all of those are filled with memories. But many times it's a sight, it's a sound, it's a smell, it's a touch, it's a place. And while at times we know that we may encounter some intensity, because let's say we're going back to church for the first time, you can prepare yourself for that for a bit. It's going to be hard. Last time I was here was the funeral, and now I'm back, and it may feel like a very different place. But there are just dozens and dozens, if not more, of triggers that just sneak by, like smells, like places that you had forgotten that you had been. I hear people talk about the fact that they're in a restaurant and they hear a voice that sounds like their loved one, or they see the silhouette of somebody that reminds them. So really, our senses are almost constantly bombarded by these moments.
Your client Brenda seems to be a good example of how environmental triggers can really affect a person's grief.
Brenda is a good example of somebody who thought she was going crazy. She came to talk to me about the fact that she just felt like she was suffocating. Her grief was so overwhelming. So at that point, I was way past the idea of steps and stages and into the notion of story, and so I asked her to tell me about her relationship with her husband, that he had died tragically in an automobile wreck. And so once she began to tell me this story, this was a very unique couple in that they did everything together. The only time that they were apart was when they had to be apart for work. But once we started talking about it, Brenda was able to see there really was no corner of her life that her husband hadn't been a part of. And when we could look at the fact that each time she looked at a certain spot in the house, or she took the dogs out for a run, or she had coffee in the morning, every part of her day was basically associated with her spouse who had died. The relief for her to understand that she was not going crazy, but that she was trying to process these environmental moments faster than her mind and her brain could keep up with, gave her a great deal of peace and helped her understand again that this is the love that she had for him. This was a couple that shared everything that they could possibly share. So she was able to move from feeling like she was crazy to understand that these were just the many, many ways that she and her husband experienced each other.
Thanks so much, everyone. We appreciate your watching. Hope this was helpful. We'll see you next time.